Earlier this morning, Esme Murphy sat down with Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison.
And joining us right now is Attorney General Keith Ellison. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. I know there have been a lot of sleepless nights. How are you feeling?
You know, I'm a little fatigued, but I'm fine. I'm energized. You know, there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm up for it. I'm ready.
You must be relieved.
For many reasons. I mean, I was so glad that last night seemed to be much better, and hopefully tonight will be even better. So that is a relief, I'll agree.
Okay. I know this isn't your wheelhouse, but do you have any idea why they didn't have that kind of show of force the night before? I mean, you had 3 nights ago, they burned down a precinct. Why not have that huge show of force the next night?
Well, I'd be speculating if I were to offer an opinion. I will say this. I think Governor Walz wanted to give everybody as much opportunity as they could to sort of comply, and then when it became clear that this thing was just going up, he knew he had to be a little bit more forceful. But restraint was something that we were hoping for, but I would defer that to the Commissioner of Public Safety. He would speak on that much better than me.
There have been so many of these incidents and so many protests around the country. This has been going on for a long time. This really feels different to me as a journalist. Does it feel different to you?
Yes, it does. I mean, but it feels like the logical extension of what we've seen over the past several years and even decades. I mean, look, in the 1960s, there were a lot of civil disturbances. They issued something called the Kerner Commission Report, right. 68, and it said that—
Two nations.
Yeah, and it said, look, you know, the kindling for the disturbance may have been joblessness, discrimination, but the spark is always very negative interactions between police and community. And it's still true. We have more inequality, more disparity than we did even in the 60s in many ways. The minimum wage has not kept up with what it was in the 60s. And so that the police interactions with the community are intense, and they have the potential to really be explosive. And we have to deal with it. Systemic change is what we've got to do right now.
In terms of, you are obviously the Attorney General, the top law enforcement official in the state of Minnesota. You know how tough it is to prosecute police officers. People are demanding that the other 3 officers also be charged. I've talked to a lot of people, very smart people, who say that's going to be tough, especially for the 2 officers who were at the end still holding him down. What do you think?
I think that anytime you prosecute the police, it's going to be difficult. I mean, let me just remind people about how difficult it was to get a conviction in the Walter Scott case. That's a case where he was running away from the officer in South Carolina, and the officer took a stance and just shot him down. That jury hung. In the Rodney King case, those people were acquitted. And there have been many other cases throughout. Prosecuting a police officer is not easy, even among the most culpable. People look at tape, they say, of course that person's clearly guilty. By the time it gets to trial, it's a different story. Highly skilled defense attorneys who are trying to break every single link. A lot of times jurors resolve all doubts in favor of the police. And so the prosecution has to make sure they have a very solid case. So I would say it will be difficult. It is possible, and it is just, and it is right to do so.
What happens now to Minnesota? I'm a parent, you're a parent,
right.
But I'm not a parent of color. You have 4 young adult children,
yep.
including 3 sons.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I fear for them every single day. You know, my son is a city council member. He's my city council member, and he is so earnest and so sincere about getting justice and having a better community. You know, we do what is our family tradition to do. We do service to the public. That's what we do. And that's all we can do. We don't know how to do anything else other than continually get up in the morning and try to make a positive contribution to our community. So that's what we're going to do. But we know that we've got to do more than just seek justice for Mr. Floyd. We've got to really dig into the systemic improvement of justice. I mean, I'll just say this to you. Here's a stat for you. 27% of African Americans own their own home in Minnesota. About 70+ do among the white community. About the average income for African Americans in Minnesota was about 32,000 until it dropped to about 27,000. It's creeped up a little, but in Minnesota, the average is about 68,000. I mean, the income disparities, the health care disparities, the incarceration disparities, the arrest disparities are very stark, and that is kind of what fuels this overall problem.
Okay, well, Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for coming in. We certainly appreciate it, and we certainly hope that a new chapter going forward for the state of Minnesota, for the country, really, that maybe something good can come of all this. So thank you.
Let's make it happen. Thank you.